All right, we're back, and it feels like it's been forever. Honestly, so much has gone on, but at least there's one thing that we know for sure: that the Rangers, they're staying hot. The win streak might have been snapped since we last spoke, but their point streak has been extended to 8 games after the win against Detroit on Tuesday night, and they look to take that into their rematch with the Wild tonight at the Garden. So if you're hearing this right now, hopefully it's before the game, and we don't jinx anything for whatever we say. But if we do, it's totally not our fault. But to recap where we've been, the Rangers have won 7 of the last 8, 8 of the last 10. They are first in the Metro, second in the East, and fourth overall in the league. I mean, what more could you possibly want out of this Rangers team? But look, before we get into the nitty gritty, we got to welcome in the rest of the podcast group here. Besides myself, Andrew Harts, we have the New York Rangers beat writer for the New York Post, Miss Mollie Walker. Good to see you, Mollie, as always. And we also have, of course, as always, the notorious BPB. Go look up his middle name if you want to find out what that P stands for. It's the fabulous Brian Boyle. Mollie, Brian, look, okay. So a lot to get into. The shootout loss, the skills competition, which, again, don't get me started on that. I can't stand games that end in skills competition, but that's a topic for another day. But the most important thing, at least in my mind, that we got to get into, which we didn't discuss last week because the episode ended right before everything went down, is all these injuries. And the ish has hit the fan, if you will, in terms of injuries. And literally, it's been almost, and I'm not saying it's a worst case scenario, but it's pretty much been the worst case scenario that you could possibly want in terms of who's gotten hurt. Igor is banged up. Now Quickie, he's banged up. You've got Hedel, who's on the IR, but the one that really stands out to me is Adam Fox. And it stands out to me for 4 letters. That's LTIR. Mm-hmm. And those are 4 letters you never want to hear, especially when it's someone like Adam Fox. And look, just to give those who may not be completely familiar with the LTIR rules, a player must miss at least 10 NHL games and 24 days of the NHL season. So guess what? You're not going to see Adam Fox for a little bit here. But to kick it off, we'll start with you, Brian. We know how significant the injury is. Again, Norris Trophy winner, Adam Fox, arguably one of the best players on the team, if you will. I want to get your reaction to the injury, but I also want to get your reaction to the injury itself, the hit that happened. Lob said after the game that he looked at it and he didn't like it. What did you think?
He's not going to let me. Come on. What's he going to say? Look, a couple things. And if for the diehard Rangers fans, which I'm assuming everyone listening to this is, a positive spin is it's early November. And, he doesn't have to play all these games, especially when they are where they are. They're fourth in the whole league right now. They're atop their division right now. They have a chance now to maybe, like I said it before the year, Braden Schneider, I think, can be a really, really good player in this league. All right, here's some more minutes. Keandre Miller, here's some more offensive opportunity. And, Gustafson's been nice. He's going to get a good look. He's got a month to do it. Different things you can try to spin it, and that's what you do when you're in the room. You try to spin it like, all right, here's my chance. Here's what I can do. And if they can hold serve and win more than they lose with him out, because he is that important to them, he'll come back healthy. He'll come back hopefully 100%, where it's not going to be an issue anymore. And then when it matters more later in the year, because this is right now, it's a playoff team. It's they're winning games without their 2 most important players, in my opinion, and that's really, or they're getting points anyways. Like this is what you want when you build a team. You need that depth. Now the hit itself, it's an accident. All right, sorry everybody, it's an accident. So you can cry all you want. The kid's hurt. He's not coming back for a little bit. He'll be back when he is. He's going to be great. I don't think Aho does that on purpose. It's a weird tangled up. I don't know why his skates were pointed the other direction when the Rangers had full possession in the zone. That's just like a poor read on defense. But, it looked like Fox tried to move, and if he just took on the hit dead on, it was fine. But, hindsight's 2020. It is what it is. It's not really, these things happen in hockey, and sometimes they pile on at random times throughout the year, and just be thankful it's not March.
I also think it's pretty significant for the Rangers in general, just because they have been so fortunate on the injury front in the last few years. I mean, they haven't had to put someone on LTIR for at least a few seasons here. And for it to be Adam Fox is obviously not ideal, but Brian, I completely agree. The fact that it's early November should give some Ranger fans some peace of mind, especially when it comes to Igor Shesterkin and now Jonathan Quick. Igor, originally, it was after the Carolina game. People were saying he was just a little banged up. Then it turned into minor soreness and a day-to-day type situation. But it's November. They are still winning games. You want Igor Shesterkin to be 100% when he's playing, especially because he's had some issues with lower body injuries in the past and nagging sorts of situations. So he's obviously their most important player. And the Rangers have not apologized for how much they rely on their goaltending. So that's an area that I think the Rangers are always going to be more cautious than not. So as long as they're still piling up the wins, I think that gives Igor Shesterkin and now Jonathan Quick a little bit more of a grace period. But I do think it's just pretty crazy for it all to come almost in an avalanche sort of format after being so fortunate the last few years. But I think that it could be a good opportunity for, the likes of some of the defensemen who could be getting more time. And I mean, Peter Laviolette loves Eric Gustafsson and is more than happy to ride him in all of the situations that Adam Fox.
Points.
Yeah,
look what he's done.
Yeah, he's been great. He's
player.
He's also he plays such a different style than the rest of the back end, I think. And it's so noticeable in a positive way. He's just constantly moving. He's constantly going. And that's not necessarily the rest of that decor's style of play.
He's got a wild career arc. Like look into him. The potential and what he can do offensively it's 17 goals one year.
Yeah.
on a Blackhawks team that was, I don't think they played in the playoffs that year. He had 17 goals, 60 points. Like he, and then he kind of went away for a while and came back, had a bounce back year a couple seasons ago, or last year, I guess, with Wash. He's doing it. He's got the offensive acumen to do it. They got enough bruisers back on the D side, I think.
Yeah.
That's why I said Miller originally. Like, this is huge for him. But those are their horses, right? They're going to have Trouba playing a lot, Lindgren and Miller, and you can kind of plug in different guys in there in the roles that you want, right? Like in offensive situations, you can put him out there. Maybe even Zach Jones, who I think should have arrived by now.
Yeah.
And now's his chance. He has to get it done now, or it's like he's an interesting cat to me. But I'm rooting for him. He's a good kid. But here's your chance. Like, it's on a platter for you to show the rest of the league and your own organization what you can do.
I thought it was when Gustafsson stepped onto PP1, it was very apparent how much it was like, wow, he was hyped for the opportunity. He was really, he was flying.
Yeah,
he was flying out there as soon as he got a job with that group. And I would have liked to have seen Zach Jones get put right onto the power play, especially PP2. I'm saying, especially because Laviolette was quick to put Johnny Brodzinski in with PP2, which I thought was very interesting.
Trust.
I know it was short lived, but
it's trust, right? If you can't defend, if you're a liability, I don't care what the situation, unless you're down 2 already, you can't until you trust it. And now's his chance to earn the trust. Credit to Drury, man. 825 is the cap hit for Gustafsson. He had 42 points last year. And I'm cheating. I'm looking it up because I wasn't sure the exact number, but he had 35 assists. You get him for 800, almost league minimum.
Yeah.
That's
a steal.
Win. Yeah.
That's what's been most interesting about the Fox injury, though, is that you got to remember how much of the cap hit that now bringing up guys like Domingue, the Hartford shuttle as essentially what it is, where the 3 guys get called up and then they get brought right back down and then right back up again. So the Rangers are playing that dangerous game with the salary cap as of right now, but they kind of need
They
it,
have
though.
relief, though. They have relief from both
Exactly.
those guys out.
Exactly. And obviously once the LTIR that ends, then it all kind of gets reset again. But
Yeah.
the Rangers, again, you got to give Chris Drury credit here. You do. Look, so besides all those injuries, the goalie situation, though, and Mollie, you can probably attest to this as well, too, a little bit. Now Quick is hurt, or not hurt, but he's nicked up a little bit. We're probably going to see Domingue in net tonight. Do we have any update in terms of what the situation looks like, how much longer either Quick is going to be out for, or Igor is going to be out for?
They don't ever give us timelines. Igor is a day-to-day situation, as is Quick. Quick is an upper body injury situation. They won't disclose what Igor is dealing with, just classifying it as minor soreness, which also makes me feel like it's a minor thing. And he's been practicing with the team. The other day, he was said to be a full go participant. And at this point, I feel like they're just, so long as things are going well and they're still putting things in the win column, I don't see them rushing Igor back specifically. Obviously, Quick is 37. You got to take that into consideration in terms of longevity for the whole season, because that's going to be an important guy in April when they're getting ready for the playoffs. Igor Shesterkin has played, I just looked it up today, I think it's 28 of their last 32 playoff games or something like that. He's their guy. He's their horse who they ride through the playoffs. So that's obviously way more important than these games in November, when this cushion that they've built for themselves is pretty significant. That being said, it's still early, and it's a cushion that can evaporate pretty quickly. But I feel like so long as it is still trending in an upward direction, they're not going to be rushing anybody back. And that includes Adam Fox, Filipino.
We'll see after, if they lose two quick ones, we'll see what happens. But I agree. That's the right mindset.
That's exactly.
I play with Louis.
Yeah.
I play with Louis in Pitt.
Yeah.
He had to come in. He's our number three. And, Rangers fans remember that because we dominated that series. They had no business beating us. And Louis played really well. Give him a lot of credit. He the year before he didn't get a lot of games because of COVID. I got close with Louis during that little run we had. He came over. We were staying at JT Miller's house and cooking food. My family was back in Boston. It was great. And he went to work every day. Give him a lot of credit. He's hanging in there, and I hope he does really well. I know I'm sure he will. He's a gamer.
Spicy pork and broccoli on the menu tonight.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
That's honestly, I would love to.
Hilarious.
I probably will sit down, especially if he continues to play. I probably will sit down with him and ask him about that night. And just I'm curious if he ever thought it was going to be as big of a thing as it became.
I don't think he did. But the funny thing is, he really does. He loves to cook, and he's got all these different dishes. He's an interesting cat for sure.
Yeah.
He's a goalie, though,
Yeah, they're all a little weird, aren't they?
Yeah, a little different.
What's the adjustment like, though, Brian? And I'm curious from a player standpoint, where you're constantly taking that trip up and down, and especially for Louis, who he's essentially a second backup now. I don't know, you never were a goalie, but I mean, in terms of just trying to stay fresh and just, there has to be a lot going on from behind the scenes in terms of your life just being adjusted back and forth, never knowing when you're going to start, when you're going to play, when you're going to get called up. That has to be hard to at least manage, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you have to stay ready, and it's every day, right? That's what everybody says. It sounds kind of cliche, but no, like this is your job. So you get called in the office, hey, you're going up. All right. So you go up and you prepare and you play your best. You can't turn it on and off. It's every single day. You're thinking about the game. You're thinking about how I can improve. What have I done poorly? What have I done well? What were the games that I was really playing well? What did I do on those? Everything goes like that in your mind as an athlete. When you're getting called up and down, I mean, it's relatively close to training camp. A few weeks ago was training camp, and you get to know kind of everybody, and you get to see familiar faces in both places. It's not a 5-hour flight. It's a couple-hour drive up the road. That makes it probably easier. And again, it's not as much systems that he has to play as a goalie. It's just reading off the system in front of you. And usually teams play the same system in the NHL and the American League to a different, level of execution, obviously, but tendencies, you want to stay with one club and get their tendencies so you can provide and anticipate as best you can. You want to communicate with your defenseman on breakouts and rims and dumps because he shoots the other way, catches the other way, whatever they say. But that might be a little bit of a difference. But it's just it's small things like that, but a lot of small things like that can add up to big things unless you're prepared. If you prepare, it could be nothing.
The stat is Domingue is set to become the first Rangers right-handed catching goaltender to play in a game for the team since Glenn Hanlon in 1982-83,
Wow.
1985-86.
That's a pull right there.
Yeah, as soon as you said it, I was like, I just read this. It's a pretty crazy stat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice pull, yeah.
But now, so here's the other thing that I'm kind of curious about. Obviously, someone like Igor, Jonathan Quick, two phenomenal goalies who could start pretty much on any team. As a just anyone else on the ice who plays for the Rangers, not Hartford or anything like that, is there a need to kind of step up your game, knowing that, I mean, no slight against Louis, but I mean, knowing that you may want to bring a little extra extra, force to your play, knowing that you have someone like Louis in there.
Yeah, it's detailed, really. And people would say this a lot when Hank would come out. We'd play a different game in front of the other goalie, and you'd hear it a little bit, and we'd be like, "Stop!" Hanky gets enough attention. Like, let's let him have the day off. Stop coming at. We're getting yelled at for winning. Like Marty's in that, or somebody's in the Cam Talbot's in that, and we're getting yelled at for winning. No. Sometimes you play different because the goalie handles the puck more or less. He covers it more or less. It's what it is. But usually, and back in those days when the starter would play 65 games, 70 games sometimes, it was like, let's get one for this guy. And you really lock it down. And you say, we'll give up 0-1, maybe. Let's get this kid a shutout if we can. But that was just an understanding. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of chatter about that, if any. I don't remember talking about it. It wasn't a different mindset. It was just like, we got to go because that guy's not bailing us out. We didn't say that. I know that. I certainly didn't think it. I watched our goalies every single day, and I had full confidence in them. Now, some people would argue with me, and maybe the D-Corps did have a chat saying, let's help them out tonight. Whatever it is, I don't know, but we didn't. But for whatever reason, yeah, sometimes that risky play, it wasn't like, I'm going to try harder, because you literally can't try harder. Everybody tries as hard as they can. And I really hope fans understand this. It is extremely difficult to play really well in the NHL, and then it's even harder to do it 7 out of 10 nights. And then the guys who do it every single night, well, they get paid $10 million, and that's why, because it's like impossible. And for a whole team to do it, it's nearly impossible. So we set out with the same mindset to try and play as good as we can, because we know the opponent is very, very good, no matter what the record is. And when you have a backup in, you understand, like, a lot of times, especially back then, it was like we're playing against a team that's 12th in the conference. It's like, well, we better not friggin' lose to this team. I don't care who's in that. If I'm in that, we better not lose to this team. We got to win this. We got to win this game. So that, I mean, a lot of that's the psychological stuff that coaches put on you on purpose and for the right reasons. And the good coaches do it at the right times. Now the goalie split, if you get called up or whatever, and you're up a couple goals, you might try and feed a guy that's trying to get his first goal or whatever. But with the goalies, for me anyways, we didn't pay too much attention to it. Just get back there and make the saves, please.
Well, speaking about someone who's playing every night and bringing it every night, it's been about 20 minutes into this podcast, and we got to bring him up now, because I'm sorry, I cannot let the show go on any longer. Artemi Panarin. Yeah. And look, his point streak now. Yeah, I mean, kind of good. Only, a 12-game point streak, 20 points for the season on the total, which is third most in the league. He's got 7 goals, 13 assists. Look, Ranger fans, hockey fans, acknowledge him. Like, that's all I'm saying. This is now this is peak Artemi in my mind, or at least it feels like peak Artemi. But like, how much better can he possibly get? And can he keep this up, Mollie? Like, what's been the feeling around the team, just watching what's going on right now with him?
Yeah, I mean, you ask anybody about it, and it's just, yep, that's Artemi. That's what he does. That's what he can do. And we talked about it earlier in the season. He looks lighter. He looks unburdened by playoff pressure and expectations, and maybe the haircut really did let him shed all that. But he, and it was funny because somebody tried to ask him about his own play and then how well he's been doing, and he looked right at them and was like, "It's a win for the team, 2 points for the team." Yeah, he did not take the bait. It's early. Obviously, things can change on a whim. This streak could end on a whim, but with the way that he's operating, he looks light. He's impactful every single night. Doesn't matter who's skating on his line. Doesn't matter if it's Filipino, Vincent Trocheck. 2-goal game, looked great next to Artemi Panarin. That's a guy who we obviously played with on 2 long separate stretches last season. Wasn't so great in the beginning, but once he got that second shot, he was pretty spectacular. So I didn't have any doubt that he would be able to pick that right back up, especially with the way that Artemi is playing right now. It's just how easy, I don't know if easy is the word I want to use, but how much fun maybe it must be for Vincent Trocheck and Alexis Lafreniere to be playing off of that right now. I'm curious, actually, Brian, what is, when you are feeding off of somebody who's just operating at a higher level, what is that like?
Well, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And you know what? In my chemistry with line mates was a lot different than what we're seeing right here. This is translating into a lot of goals and points.
Yeah.
Mine was at the other end of the rink, but when we'd create. But I remember when we played, me, Prusty, and Fedotenko, and we'd have shifts in the third period of a game. We were up, and we knew where the other guy was going to be. We'd be in the other end for almost 2 minutes sometimes. I don't think we even looked to shoot a puck because we didn't want it to end. So we killed the clock, but the fans and the crowd was going nuts. I remember those shifts. It was the most fun. And you'd get off the ice and be like, we probably could have thrown one at the net there. And they're like, no. We're not here to score. And but it was just like we knew where everybody was going to be. The thing with Panarin that makes it probably hard, like you said, with Troch the first time, he does things that guys don't do. That's why you can't check him. It's a lot like Fox in that. Like, where did he find that space, and how did he contort his body to? It's not blowing by you like a McDavid or even a Kreider who just can giddy up and go. He can move and he's agile, but he just finds pockets of ice where you look like he's in a corner and he's got nowhere to go. He's going to get rid of it, and he doesn't. And then he makes a tape to tape play instead of just a space play. Things like that always blow me away. I've tried to keep watching and understand. I know it's too late for me, but I want to know still. This is like, it's driving me nuts sometimes. Even Fox, like it drives me nuts. But you can't really say he hasn't lived up to, I guess if he makes that much, you expect postseason success. But it's just like his numbers every single year. He brings it. And so it's nice to see if the streak ends, if it doesn't, whatever, it's nice to talk about. It's good to see that he's in good form. But I mean, again, he's going to have to bank him wins so they get in a good spot for the postseason. But that's when it's going to really, really matter. And, hopefully he's played with enough guys now, no matter what the lineup is, you could plug him in anywhere and they're going to ride that horse. And Lavi's good with that too. Like we talked about a few times, at how he motivates and how he empowers guys. He really, really does. So even if you're not going, he'll get you going with just what he says and how much you can tell that he cares. So hopefully when they hit a rough patch, if they do, I think every team needs to, not on purpose, but you kind of see that character and those guys come out of it. He's one of them that, the spotlight's going to be on him game one of playoff time.
That's my biggest, I guess, defense of Artemi Panarin whenever, the playoffs come up. And yes, legends, and everything that you leave behind is probably cemented in playoffs. But that being said, and I've said it on this show many, many times and many other shows many, many times, the Rangers do not get to the playoffs without Artemi Panarin.
Right.
With the way that he's played since he signed in New York. They simply do not. That is how vital he has been to their cause the last few seasons, and the production that he has put up on a consistent basis for the Rangers every single regular season. So yes, do you want more production in the playoffs? Do you want all of that to translate in the postseason? Yes, of course. But that does not diminish what he does for the Rangers during the regular season. And this is just another season, another example.
Yeah. Well, don't forget what he did Game 7 2 years ago too. Broke my heart, but that's a lot. That's several $1 million going into Mr. Dolan's pocket. Just getting into another round of the playoffs. Scored a overtime game winner, and he was fine 2 years ago. You want him to be. You saw Mika a couple years ago, and then if you have 2 or 3 of those guys, watch out. But it's there. I think he's going to be there. They're a scary team. They are. Everybody in the East should be scared.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the only scary team, but they're a scary team.
Well, one could say the Rangers are for realsies. I'm just going to throw that out there. Well, look, like you said.
Hey, I was on business side that year too because I couldn't believe we lost. I'll be honest, I don't care. People yell at me when I played.
We got to get him on here. We really do.
Especially
maybe
that guy's busier than I am, and I got 5 kids.
Yeah.
Well, he finally came around.
I was gonna say, I think he'd come on a Rangers podcast if given the invite. I feel like he just wouldn't be able to say no.
Well, I have to stay tuned for that. Maybe that could be a fun little crossover. But speaking of coming up, we're going to talk about another guy who the Rangers couldn't get to the playoffs without. And Brian can speak to that wholeheartedly. It's the great Henrik Lundqvist. And he's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame this weekend. And we're going to talk about some memories from Hank. It's coming up next. All right, back here on the podcast. And it's a big weekend for one of our favorite goalies, your favorite goalies, I'm assuming, if you're listening to the podcast as well, too. Henrik Lundqvist, the 6th all-time winningest goaltender of the NHL, is being inducted into the Hall of Fame on this Monday. And look, it's an honor that obviously anyone would love to take and have and hold. And Hank had his number retired last year at the Garden. But this is going to be something special on Monday. And as someone who watched pretty much his whole career, it sucks that we didn't get that real proper Rangers send off, but this will be a bittersweet kind of thing to see. And it's one of those where it's like it's the end of my childhood, man. Like you're seeing Hank up there taking his rightful place amongst some of the greatest players of all time. Brian, you got to play with him, and I can only imagine the stories and the memories you have. What's, I guess, your first take on this? What's your overall lasting impact of Henrik Lundqvist as a player, as a leader?
Yeah, you just said it. As a leader, right? Goalies, when you're younger, a lot of teams would just slap the C on the goalie or say the goalie's a captain. It just kind of avoided any other, in youth hockey and coming up in high school or whatever. But, he was such a hard worker. He was, and he still is. I mean, look at him now. He's doing so well, and nobody, that doesn't surprise anybody. But, as a teammate and as a person, I guess I'll start there. He was phenomenal. And because he was demanding, but he was most demanding of himself. And it was crazy to watch his work ethic. And that's where the leadership came in. I got to shoot on him, my first few years. I would shoot, you grab 2 or 3 guys, usually guys that probably didn't play so much, aren't eating up a lot of minutes, looking for some extra work. And I remember how fast he would do the goalie drills. And if it wasn't perfect, he would do it again. So we'd be out there, and he was cutting into practice at times because he wanted to make it right. I'm sure if you bring on anybody that was backing him up, they'll say the same things, that how hard he worked, how hard he pushed them to be better. You saw a couple guys play under him as young players and go sign elsewhere and have good careers. Cam Talbot comes to mind, but I mean, just he's a generous man. He has all these accolades and all-star games, and he's going in the Hall of Fame, which is 100% deserved, obviously. And he traded all to win a Stanley Cup. That's what he wanted. That's the only thing he wanted to do was win. He didn't want any goals to go in on him. Didn't matter if it was at 11 o'clock up in Terrytown at the practice rink or, in the Stanley Cup Finals. It didn't matter. It was the same competitiveness always that never turned off. And it opened my eyes as a younger player when I came to New York, how this is how you get success. This is what it looks like. And there's no shortcut. Everyone has talent. And this is the work ethic is what separated him. And he literally did it as hard as he possibly could for as long as he possibly could. And that is, hopefully when he goes to bed every single night and wakes up every morning, he's proud of what he accomplished, because, I'm really, really thankful to be able to call him a teammate. And he did finally text me back, actually.
Finally.
So he remembers me too, which is nice.
Well, you certainly saved his bacon a few times on some plays, and vice versa. But it like you mentioned the competitiveness here. Like, obviously Hank is an extremely attractive dude, always well dressed, looking good. When he'd walk into like the locker room dressed like that, would you guys just go, "What the hell, man?" Like, can you like give a day off, like have a hair out of place or something like that? Like,
Yeah.
you could tell he took that, so he still takes that seriously.
It was odd. I'm like, it's Tuesday morning and you're putting your shoes back on after practice with a shoehorn because they're these fancy shoes and you can't just slide them on and off. Like, I got Nikes for days, but I can't even pronounce what he's wearing. He had a day where he came in Lulu sweatpants, which we were like, what is going on with Henrik? Is everything all right? We went into Rammer. We're like, Rammer, what the heck? What's going on here? What's the deal? And he's like, well, you guys always give me a hard time about I'm dressing up. So I tried it. We're like, no, don't. You freaked us all out. We thought something was terrible, like terrible was happening. But I remember one day he wore sweatpants one day. That's it. And most days he'd be getting dressed. Oh, I have this thing here in the city. I got to go do there. I'm playing with my band here. I'm like, you can't say anything because you just worked harder than anybody else. You got here earlier. You're leaving with me, which is usually last because I just was lazy and like to chat. And it was tremendous to see all the things he could take on. But yeah, I don't know how many closets he had. I should have asked him that. How many closets do you have? Like 4 walk-in closets just for you? Like, he got 2 daughters and a wife. And he probably, I guarantee he has the most closet space.
Did you guys see the cologne commercial that MSG's been pumping for them?
Oh, no.
I haven't seen it. He told me it was dropping. I think when I saw him, I don't know if it was in the Cup Finals or if I saw him in the fall. Oh no, it was in the fall. It was at the alumni golf thing that we didn't end up playing because it was rainy. He was. I told him he smelled good. He goes, "It's dropping tomorrow." I'm like, "Of course it is." Dos Equis, man.
No, I mean the commercial is the most James Bond-esque.
I gotta look at this.
No, you have to watch it.
Yeah.
It is, and they broadcast it on the MSG Jumbotron every game, first of all, which is also just to give you an idea of how much this man has given to Madison Square Garden.
We're gonna make fun of him for it. I got to get a group chat.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
They're pumping that up. But that commercial is so funny. He might as well be James Bond. Like, they might as well just cast him as James Bond in the next movie.
It kind of is, though.
He is of hockey.
He is as advertised. Like we certainly all appreciated him for what he did on the ice, but we loved him as a teammate too.
Well, and just to go off of that, he appreciated his teammates as well. I go back, my most significant Henrik Lundqvist memory growing up watching the team was when Zuccarello was traded, and that first scrum that he did, he could not get through it. The man was crying. The most emotional situation I've ever seen unfold in a hockey locker room ever. And I can't even tell you how many times I watched it. It stuck with me so much of how much he cared about Zuccarello. And obviously he was not a fan of the way that the Rangers treated him on his way out, which was also understandable. But I just thought that was so moving and so raw and real. What do you remember from that whole sequence, Brian?
I just remember, like, I knew they were very, very close, and that's hard. But it's not just that your buddy's leaving. It's like we're punting on this season.
Yeah, that
and
too.
probably next year too.
Yeah.
And that, for a guy like Hank, okay, all my friends are
Devastating.
gone,
Yeah.
and we're gonna try to lose. Like, what's going on? Not try to lose, obviously, but
Punting on
for
the
him,
season is a good way to put
he's
it.
like, and for him, he never really said it, but it's like, look at what he just has done for you for a decade and a half almost. And maybe they didn't consult with him, but management's going to do what they're going to do, and it's going to come from the very top, I think. But that's a really hard pill to swallow when it's like, we're not making the playoffs. Like, what? And I'm at this age, and we were so close just a year or two ago, and now we're this. What happened? And it wasn't on him. It wasn't his fault. It's just kind of how the course was run. It was just, that was it. And Girardi gets older, Stahl gets older. There's trades, there's buyouts, and then there's the young guys. We went for it so many times. You don't have the draft capital, and it's just like you can't replenish. So we need to take a step back. And yeah, it looks pretty good right now. And I'm not saying it was the wrong play by any means. But it's hard. It was definitely hard for the guys that stuck it out in there. And he gave everything. He was going to keep going too. And I can understand it. I got traded out of Tampa, and I was in the airport calling my wife, being like, I ain't going. I'm done. It was like, when you care that much and you were so close and you thought you had more time, I didn't know what was going to happen in my career after that. Part of it's that too. It happens when guys go through a lot together because it's so hard, like I mentioned. And it happens when you start to realize maybe that's the first inkling, like the end is near.
And it's interesting. I mean, I'll speak from it as someone that watched you guys play and whatnot. And as fans of hockey and the Rangers, you root so hard for specific players and for specific teams. And there was nothing more, as a native New Yorker, as a diehard Rangers fan, that you wanted to see you guys lift the cup, but we wanted to also see Hank lift the cup, because you got guys like Don Mattingly, played for the Yankees, diehard Yankee fans, and you wanted to see Donnie Baseball win the championship. It felt like the same thing with Hank, and that's where I say it's bittersweet, because we didn't get to see him lift it. Now, again, who knows? Maybe in the future he'll be head coach and assistant, and maybe we'll get to see him lift it wearing one of his fancy Armani suits or something like that. But it'll be an awesome honor to see him go in on Monday. You mentioned James Bond, and the first thing that came to mind was James Bond's cars. And I know Hank used to drive a Lambo. Brian, you mentioned something off air, and I kind of want to hear the story now, where you guys kind of went to town in his Lambo, or you got on him about it.
I thought, and I could have sworn I said this, but I'll say it again. He had a gray Lambo, and he had some detail work done to it, and he had it at the shop. So he took his Maserati to practice that day, or whatever it was.
Oh, the Maserati.
And so a couple days later, in comes the Lambo again, and it's got all black lettering on it. It's got some black accents. The wheels are all black now, and looks really good. You get a little closer to the back of it, where it says Lamborghini in cursive. It says Lundqvist in cursive, and we're all like, no. You can't just say nothing. So we're like, oh, cool car, Hank, nice. And then we all got like thick white hockey stick tape, and put like a couple strips stacked on top of each other on the back of our cars, and in block letter wrote our names. And we're beeping the horn and waving, see ya, Hank. Yeah. And we're driving out with our names on the back. It's so stupid too, because we're just driving around New York with our own names on the back of our car.
I gotta know, was it your full name or just Boyle?
No, just our
Can you imagine
just our last name,
Brian's car written on the Brian's car.
But I think G might have put Lundqvist on his too. But it was, and then he came back into the training room. He's like, "Why can't you guys just leave me alone? Why does?"
Fun of me so
much.
That's too easy though. At that point,
You better stop because it's
Yeah.
going to get worse if you don't stop.
It's not like you're replacing Lamborghini with Lundqvist is a bad thing. No, no.
So in goes the
It's
Lambo in the
iconic.
shop. In goes the Lambo in the shop. Scrape off Lundqvist, put Lamborghini back on it, and away we go. He changed it. He changed it back.
Oh my
Oh my
god,
God.
he was probably mortified.
No, he well, so he contends that he didn't ask him. The guy did it to him thinking he'd love it as a favor, and I'm sure he liked it at first. He didn't
Maybe
like
he
it
didn't
after
even
he got to-
notice.
He noticed. Oh, he knew. Yeah, he knows. But
Oh man. Well, listen. Hopefully, maybe sometime in the future we'll have Hank on. We'll have to bring up some memories of like getting razzed in the locker room about that. But we're gonna close up the episode coming up next on Up in the Blue Seats. And that'll put a bow on episode 131 of Up in the Blue Seats, our Rangers podcast from the New York Post. But before we get out of here, we got to give out some stars. Let's go with you, Boyle, first. What you got? Number 1 star of the week.
I got Troche, Vincent Trocheck. He's fitting in nice. Playing with the bread man a little more. Mollie, you're telling me it didn't work last year at times. But he's got to be that complimentary guy. You got Mika, and obviously the bread man's lighting it up. Kreids is doing what Kreids does, and then you need another wave of that. And I liked his week. I like Troche as a player. I liked his finish. Just flying down all deceptively, looking like he's not skating fast, blowing by guys, and a nice finish off the post and in. I think he does so many things well, and he's strong as an ox. He's going to be huge come playoff time.
One
Yeah,
of those guys stepping up.
Larry said he liked my use of double dipped after the Detroit game. Double dipped, had an even strength goal and a power play goal. Just throwing it all at the net. I'm gonna go with Erik Gustafsson because I think Rangers fans should be counting their lucky stars that they've got a guy like Erik Gustafsson to step in next to Lindgren, top of the power play. It's a different look, but it's still a pretty good look so far.
You got the Gus bus and the Trouba train. I'm telling you, this team's gonna be firing on all cylinders come playoff time. My 3rd star, it's gonna be Chris Kreider, and past Andy Bathgate, taking over control for 4th most all-time goals in Rangers franchise history, which is wild to think about. And
Clydesdale. He's Clydesdale.
He's Clydesdale. There. Oh,
that's a good
I
one.
see what you did there. See?
All forms of transportation have been covered.
Bus, trains, and horses. Love to see it.
Horse-drawn carriage.
You guys never heard the Clydesdale before?
Never heard
No.
No, I like that.
I like
he is
it
Clydesdale.
too.
We'll absolutely take that. Well, he'll certainly be passing Adam Graves for 3rd all time, who's at 280. So again, hats off to Chris Kreider. Congratulations. And honorable mention to Buckley Goodrow for the birth of his child. So that's awesome too, which I know, Brian, you can probably attest to.
We love babies on this podcast.
We do. All right. Well, as always, many thanks to Jake Brown for helping produce the show. You can catch up on all episodes of the podcast by subscribing to Up in the Blue Seats on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And if you're watching us right now on the New York Post YouTube page, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Like below, comment below. Does the current wave of injury concern you with the Rangers, or you think everything will be fine? I mean, it looks fine for now, so we should be good. You can also follow us on Twitter, X, Mollie Walker, that's 2 E's, 2 R's, and Brian Boyle at BryBrows22. For Brian Boyle, Mollie Walker, I'm Andrew Harts. We are back next week with another episode of the podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, tune in, check it out. LGR. Talk to you next week. Later.